Ladies and gentlemen, our next session is on payment system industry, sustainable resilience, and business opportunity creation. And we are honored this morning to have with us this expert to lead this conversation. He is a Senior Vice President and Head of Asia Pacific at FIME. Please welcome Mr. James Daniels. Mr. James Daniels, the floor is yours.
Good morning. I think you can hear me, right? Good. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me here. I want a special thanks to Prima for inviting us, but also for organizing this event. I think these kinds of events are really important in our industry. This is how we get together, have a common interest, and move our industry forward. So I think it's a great initiative, and I wish we see more of those, actually. Cool. So I'm here to talk about resilience, and I think they were great introductions from Pak Abraham from the Bank Indonesia, because it's all very aligned, as you will see. We work in an environment that's changing a lot, and how do we get ready, and how do we have our systems ready to sustain this environment that's changing is a key, a strategic discussion that we need to have. So I work for FIME. FIME is a company that sees itself as an enabler of the payment ecosystem. We help companies like yours to develop new businesses and new products. So we have teams of consultants under our Consult Hyperion umbrella. And we have a strong practice around test and certification, test tools and services that help making sure that whatever product you're defining are working fine, but are also not impacting the rest of the ecosystem. As we know in our industry, interoperability is a big thing, right? So we work a lot around this and around standards and etc. So the world is changing a lot. We've seen in the previous slide between cyber attacks, system failure, geopolitical shift. Defining a system, a resilient system that can sustain all these sorts of disasters is not easy. So it takes a bit of thinking, and that's what we want to discuss a little bit today. My colleagues, Dave Birch, who is the ambassador for Consult Hyperion, and Lionel Gros-Claude, who is the CEO of FIME, have wrote an article which was published a couple of months ago in the Journal of Payment of Strategies and Systems, where they define that resilience is no longer a technical requirement, it's a geopolitical necessity. And through this article, they propose 4 strategies to achieve this goal of resilience. So this is what we want to discuss. Before we get there, we're going to discuss a little bit about a number of trends that is affecting the payment industry today that we all need to be aware of. Because again, if building resilience for today is not good enough, right? We need to be resilient for tomorrow as well, right? So the trends are important. So we see 6 trends. The first one is artificial intelligence. This is already with us. It's already changing the way we work today. Agentic AI is coming up as well and will have a big, strong effect of our payment industry, because it will change the way we interact and how we initiate payment, right? Today, a lot of industry focus is around user experience. Tomorrow, with agentic AI, do we still need user experience? I mean, if the agent is choosing how to pay, they don't really care if it looks good, basically, right? So big impact. Second trend is around resilience. I think the 2 keynotes before me already explained why we need to discuss that. I don't think I need to explain it more. It's already there, and it's not optional. It's a live issue today. Next, we have digital identity. Digital identity has the power to change our industry and to change the trust in our industry. I'm going to talk a lot more about this later, so I'll stop here for now. And then we have other trends like tokenization and Web3, which will be the enablers of programmable money. So, and different type of exchange. And spatial computing, we start seeing a lot of wearables. I don't know if the Meta glasses are common in Indonesia, in Hong Kong. We see quite a lot of those now. And so these wearables and the AR-driven commerce will also change the way we interact and probably have more transactions done online between virtual parties rather than people. And there's one more trend, and that's quantum computing. So quantum computing, we haven't talked a lot about it today because the threat felt distant, but it's coming faster than we thought. And it has the potential to redefine the foundation of trust in the payment industry. This article from Microsoft, published a few months ago, is saying that the quantum computer will be ready and will be ready in years, not decades. What that means is, in less than 10 years, there will be computers capable of breaking our current cryptographic keys. We also know in the industry that changing the numerous keys that we are using today will take between 7 and 10 years. So if you do the math, we need to get started because this environment might be broken. So it's not just a technology issue, it's a sovereignty issue. Those who control the cryptographic standards will control the infrastructure of trust. My colleague Neil will talk a lot more about this right after, and he's a lot more knowledgeable than me on the topic. So Abraham, you've already mentioned a number of disasters. The world is changing. So how do we react to that? There's a number of countries who are advising their citizens to keep cash. So I can't help thinking of the story I read once about a Chinese pensioner who took his life saving and buried it in his garden, and when he needed it, went to dig it out, and it was eaten by worms. There's nothing left. So remember that cash has a physical fragility to it. So is it a good backup? Not so sure. There's also the concept that people who are stuck in cash economies are often the ones who suffer the most when the economy fails or when the system fails. And the problem is the system do fail. It happens. It happens when there is natural disaster. In this world, this part of the world, we are prone to flood, to typhoon, to earthquake, to volcanoes. When those happen, access to bank or mobile network and ATM disappear. But there's also cyber attack. You mentioned it earlier as well. There's fraud. There's geopolitical shock. I mean, we know that a leader of one country can change the economy of the world out of one decision or literally overnight. We have seen it not so long ago, right? So how do we build systems that are resilient to all this, right? So it's not so much about if disruption comes, it's how do we build those systems that they can bend without breaking. There's a great user case, a great business case to look at, to discuss that, and it's the case of Ukraine. I mean, you all know Ukraine is at war, but it's an amazing example of stepping into the future while in crisis. So the National Bank of Ukraine took rapid actions. Their mission was to maintain stability and support citizens in crisis. So they worked with the retail world, especially stores, pharmacies, petrol stations, to prioritize cashless payments. The point was to try to reduce cash, especially in crisis area. To make sure that worked, they reinforced their system of electronic payment, which is an ISO 20022 settlement system, and made sure it was up and running all the time. And even under duress, on the drone attack, on the bombing, they managed to keep that system of electronic payment up above 90%. So that was the foundation. But another critical element was their bank ID system. And the bank ID is a remote ID system, so digital ID, which would give citizens access to financial services and to public services online. So again, equally critical, that system was to be maintained up and running. And the last point that they really worked on is to ensure that there is a offline capability so that commerce could stay alive when and the economy functioning when the infrastructure was under attack. And here, when we talk about attack, we talk about literal attack. It's bombing, right? So an interesting case. So there's quite a bit to learn from this case. And in the article that Dave and Lionel wrote, so it's a kind of a blueprint of how do we build that resilience. So the article proposed 4 strategic approaches to resilience. And the idea is that each one of them have a different kind of protection against different systemic shocks or different failure causes. Basically, taking one system and making it completely reliable is first not completely possible, and second, very expensive. So instead of doing that, build 4 independent systems that can back up each other, but which fail under different duress, and therefore not at the same point or for the same causes. Oh, I forgot one point. The connection between these 4 payment systems and the fact that they can back up one another, or a transaction can move from one to the other, the link that makes that work is the foundational digital ID system. So you will see that digital ID, we're going to talk more and more about it, but it's really the foundation that makes all this work. Do you know the Bank of International Settlement? So Bank of International Settlement is the association of central banks. Its primary role is to manage settlement between central banks. Its secondary role is to work on innovation for the financial industry, for the betterment of the financial industry. They wrote a paper a couple of years ago about the future of the financial system, and that's how they represent it. And they describe it as I read from the report, the future of the financial system, of Internet, will be built on interconnected platforms that exchange tokenized form of money and assets. At the foundation of this architecture sits digital identity. Right? As you can see on the drawing, digital identity is the foundation. For digital assets to move through e-banking applications, wallet, and eventually to users, the connection is the digital ID, and the fact that a user can prove that it's entitled to a tokenized asset. So that's what makes the glue of this system. Now on to the 4 strategies. The first one is about empowering domestic schemes. Domestic schemes have a role to play in an economy, especially in a world where we are sometimes dominated by global players. And global players do not have, as an objective, the betterment of a specific country. They work for their own objectives. The domestic scheme can be here to balance that and making sure that local policies are implemented for the nation. And domestic scheme can be working on card payment, on account-to-account, on CBDC, on digital ID, etc. The second strategy is about strengthening account-to-account. So here we've seen numbers. Chris is already working very well. So here we suggest to still strengthen account-to-account as a resilient mechanism. And then there is digital currency. One strategy around stablecoin, and another strategy separate around CBDC. So we'll see why having 2. So first, empowering domestic scheme. A good example, it's an old story, but I think it still carries a lot of weight. In 2018, in the UK, a developed economy, Visa had an outage that lasted several days. There were signs in the shops that says cash only. There were hours of queuing in front of stores and petrol stations. The Bank of England did a study about what happened, and then they went back to Visa and says, you need to improve the resilience of your system. Was that the right conclusion? I don't think so. The wrong conclusion would be to build a parallel system that is independent of it and can be controlled by the Bank of England. Right? So I think that was a bit of a mistake. So here we can see that the domestic scheme can be built for purpose, and the purpose is to support the country, so it has a sovereign impact. But because it's also built for purpose, it can be better at fraud monitoring, because fraud can be quite local. It can be it convey faster implementation of national policies, but it can also impact account-to-account, digital ID, or card. Account-to-account is seen is often seen as a cheaper infrastructure and therefore easy to deploy. So it's a great backup. It's great to create resilience between the two. So that's where the strategy really emphasizes to have a card network and account-to-account network. They back up each other, but they also create a sense of innovation to make them both move forward. And with innovation and competition, you create a better environment for users, you get better adoption, better user experience, but also better resilience. So here, we've seen pilots in Indonesia around Kristap, and I think it's an amazing product. I wish I could see it, actually. But for this to work well and to create resilience, now the card network needs to have a contacted program as well. Right? This is how you create that competition that better the whole environment. Right? So I think a contactless card system would help in this resilient ecosystem. Stablecoin. Do we need a stablecoin strategy? We think yes. And maybe a stablecoin strategy is not as strong as a CBDC strategy, but there's a big difference. It's a CBDC takes time to build, stablecoin is already there. Make full advantage of it. Stablecoins are private enterprise working on private network. There is no connection to the rest of the card system that we talked about, or to the account-to-account payment we talked about. So in terms of resiliency, that's perfect. It's completely disconnected. Right? So it shouldn't fail by the same event. It has a caveat, though, is most stable coins are USD-based. So do you want your resilience strategy to be based on a foreign currency? Probably not. So having a stable coin dominated in local currency would be a strong strategy around resilience. And lastly, CBDCs. But here there is a magic word or keyword, which is offline. Why offline? If a CBDC doesn't have an offline link, it's not bringing a lot of value to the system. It's the offline characteristic that gives it the value, but also the resilience that would be needed for adoption. And there are good examples of that. So offline CBDCs are possible. One exists not so far from here in China. The EU1 today works not only offline, it also works on a dead phone. If your battery is dead, you can still pay with the EU1. We have done actually quite a bit of work at the Consult Hyperion and FIME to help the Bank of International with offline CBDC. We've built a test tools that now Bank of International provide to central banks when they want to do testing. We've designed that. So, one foundation, 4 strategies. These strategies are moving us towards a higher resilience with a reasonable time frame. You've seen there's no magic here, it's nothing new, because those 4 topics, or at least 3 of the 4 topics we discussed, were already addressed in the previous presentation. So the path to resilience is already there and can really be achieved relatively quickly. So again, the resilience is about building multiple and independent, yet interoperable electronic payment system, each capable of backing up each other in crisis. So if one fails, we need to be able to route to another. And the key things that help us to route from one to the other is a strong digital ID system. So here's the vision. The first on the left side is the existing money system managed by the banks and financial institutions. Then we have CBDC, which is on a separate infrastructure managed and handled by the central bank. And then the stablecoin infrastructure that is not on the same infrastructure. It's a completely private infrastructure. It's not even managed or supervised by the central bank, but it should be regulated by the central bank. So you see that all these systems are completely independent. And again, in the middle, you see things with account, things with wallet, and we really believe that the wallet is one of the key in the future of the industry. So the wallet holds money, holds credentials, and entitlements. And it's through these wallets, and therefore a strong digital ID system, that you can access any of these services. So there's one thing we've learned with working with countries around the world, is that sovereign infrastructure is not something you buy, it's something you build. So you need to build it with standards, with technical questions, with thoughtful design and coordinated execution. It's also a lot about collaboration. So everyone in this room probably has a role to play here. It needs to be grounded in local realities. It needs to be aligned with the country long-term policies. But it also needs to be informed by global experience. A lot of these are being tested in numerous places in the world. And so keeping an eye on what's happening elsewhere to see what could apply here is important. So that's about it, but I just would like to leave you with 3 questions to think about how we're going to build this resilience in Indonesia. So the first question is, who sets the rules the payment system follow, and can you change them if needed? If one part of your infrastructure fails, what will keep the rest running? And last one, when digital ID becomes the gateway to services, who controls the gate? So if you reflect on this, this is going to be a first step towards building more resilience. So these are questions that need answers today. They're not quite for tomorrow. This is the foundation of a resilient, inclusive, and a sovereign digital future. Thank you for listening. I think I went a lot faster than planned. The article on which this was based can be shared if you're interested. You can connect with me on LinkedIn or by email, and I'll be happy to share the article if you're interested. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. James. Ini kita bahas bersama prioritas strategis dalam keuangan retail, tentunya ada juga AI, ketahanan, dan juga identitas digital, tokenisasi, Web3, komputasi spesial. Tentunya ini semua menjadi bagian dari keseharian kita saat ini. Dan kita juga akan meninjau ulang ketahanan sistem pembayaran di mana dari studi kasus yang tadi sudah kita dengarkan di Ukraina, bencana alam, bencana bahkan dari buatan manusia dan juga bencana yang tidak alami, ini semua tidak terhindarkan. Untuk itu identitas digital sebagai tulang punggung ketahanan yang berkelanjutan dibutuhkan. Untuk menjelajahi strategi ketahanan juga kita bisa memperdayakan skema atau ekosistem pembayaran nasional, memperkuat jalur pembayaran A2A, dan juga pemanfaatan stablecoin, dan juga pengembangan CBDC secara offline. Pertumbuhan progresif juga membutuhkan desain yang tangguh, kedaulatan untuk menuntut pandangan ke depan, serta kita juga dapat mewujudkannya melalui pendekatan yang kolaboratif.